Greetings, adventurers and bikepacking enthusiasts, those who want to become bikepacking enthusiasts. I'm Kevin Lee with Spinistry, and today we're starting session 2 of our bikepacking tutorial series. Session 1 was around fitness, and that's a pretty fundamental piece. And the next piece that's pretty fundamental as well is the camping aspect. And we want to touch on some of the basic levels of that for people who may not have a lot or maybe no camping experience just yet. Because that's one of those things, much like fitness, that kind of gets ignored sometimes when people are talking bikepacking, or you're in an internet chat group or forum or page that's kind of dedicated to that. A lot of times people defer to the opinions of people that have lots of experience and the equipment that they utilize and the types of trips they do. But everybody has to kind of start somewhere. So much like fitness, you need to have a base level of fitness before you start bikepacking, in my opinion. You need to have some familiarity with camping before you start going off adventures on your bicycle. Just getting some fundamentals around camping is pretty important before you start off on those adventures. And that's what we're going to be covering in this session. It won't take a lot of time, but we think we're going to give you a lot of good information. It's just something I want everyone to keep in mind. If you have a ton of experience bikepacking or the outdoors lifestyle, even if it's not specifically bikepacking, but camping or even overlanding or whatever else, keep the newer people in mind for where they need to start from. It doesn't usually make sense to start from spending thousands of dollars for, the most posh ultralight gear that may never get used but once, sort of thing. So let's kind of proceed from there. Again, this session is fundamentally about learning to camp. Here's the high-level overview of the important parts about learning to camp. One thing is find your own comfort zone on the way you want to camp, what your needs are, what your wants are. And you can't find that until you actually get out there and start doing it. And the reality is everyone's needs and wants are different. A perfect example is some people are very, very focused on getting out and about when they're bike packing or just camping or doing the outdoors and focusing on the meals they prepare. That's, for a lot of people, that's a really big deal. And then there's people like me that aspect of it is not particularly a big deal. Just getting some basic calories in me, with some exceptions that we'll go over, is pretty much the main thing I'm interested in. So I'm not going to pack as much cooking gear and food and things like that as somebody else that might have a different goal in mind along those lines. And the fundamentals of camping and knowing what you're comfortable with, what you can and can't do, that's a fundamental safety requirement. You don't want to go off overnighting in the woods without any experience of what that might be like. Again, like the fitness module, you do want to know your capabilities before you overcommit. And knowing what you're comfortable doing or what you're capable of doing, more importantly, knowing what you're not capable of doing yet, that helps you set up proper trip planning for yourself and the others that depend on you. And again, just like we talked about in the fitness module, the whole point of this is to go out and have fun, not to make yourself miserable. It's real easy to, again, spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on high-end gear and go out in the middle of the woods with a grand plan for a fantastic adventure, but you don't even know how to set your tent up, for example. And maybe things go wrong during the trip and you don't get into camp until after dark. And you don't have the right light available to set up a tent you're not familiar with in the dark, that sort of thing. So we'll go over some really basic stuff to make sure that you're on top of the things that's going to allow you to enjoy your trip is really what it's about. And we're also going to focus on doing this, at least on an introductory basis, on a budget. Personally, I think this is really important for many people. Not everyone. Budget's not a consideration for everyone. I get that. And if you want to start out with the best that's out there, feel free to do it. You're not going to hurt my feelings along those lines. The specific equipment I'm going to go over in this one is hopefully within the budget of just about anyone that might be bike packing curious and want to get started on this process. Even though you're starting on a budget and you're not necessarily going to start with the fanciest and best and glitziest and lightest weight equipment and so forth, that's going to be okay when you see how we ramp up this process here. You're gonna still enjoy riding your bicycle and camping. That's step one. Just get out there and ride your bicycle. Go to some fantastic places overnight, camp, spend some time around the campfire with friends and that sort of thing. And we spoke again about this in the fitness session, and we're going to reinforce it here. Learning to camp anyway. We highly recommend the methodology of, instead of going out and loading up a bicycle on your first trip or two, or maybe even 3 trips, or whenever you get to that comfort level, consider the base camp option instead, where you go, particularly if it's your first time camping or your first time setting up your own camp or whatever. That way you can take your vehicle, go to a campsite, set up camp, carry extra things in your vehicle, because you still don't know exactly what works best for you yet. Maybe you have some extra food, maybe you have an extra pillow to stay comfortable, whatever. And then just focus on the overnighting aspect, outdoors, and going on a nice bicycle ride each day of the trip. And at least to begin with, don't focus on loading up the bicycle and going from point to point to point and setting up, tearing down, setting up, tearing down. That can come later. You want to be comfortable with everything before you start doing that, and you want to know which pieces you need to properly kit out your bike packing setup over time. And we're saying learn to do this on a budget. We're talking about spending less than $200. And we'll go over some specifics on how to accomplish that. And I'm sure most people could probably do it even for half of that. Let us talk about what this training session isn't. This isn't training on surviving in the outdoors. It's not outdoorsmanship. It's not, there are plenty of online tools to teach you the basics of that. There are plenty of forums and groups that you can interact with others that have that experience. We're not using this to teach somebody how to go out there and do it. This is more about just getting properly equipped to go out there and do it. There's a plethora of resources that can give you tips and tricks and outline the best ways to stay safe in the outdoors. But along those lines, outdoor safety and enjoying yourself outdoors, that's not complicated. And this session for getting that basic equipment, this is pretty straightforward too. It's going to be, I think, pretty well laid out and outlined for you. And what this also isn't, this is not a sales pitch. We're not selling this program. We're not telling you, hey, go on this trip with us and give us this money. It's nothing like that. This is not endorsed by any specific sponsors. I say that. We're going to be recommending some specific purchases. It's not what you have to do by any stretch of the imagination. I don't want anyone thinking, well, they're promoting that one because that sponsor gives them. It's nothing like that. And again, this training itself is not for sale. We're not selling this module. It's free. It's on YouTube. Use it however you want to. I will put the qualifier in there. The shopping that we're going to be using, the example products that we're going to be pointing people to, we're going to provide the links in the description as well if people think that works for them and they want to click on it. Those will be affiliate links where we do get a very, very small commission Again, going back to our fitness module, our training is built around a tell, show, do model. And this upfront part here, and what we're doing at this point, this is the tell part. There's no secrets. We're not holding anything back. We're not teasing you saying, oh, well, we're going to show you this. But realistically, if you really want to know how it really works, send us $20 or join our, no, it's all here. There's no secrets. No, nothing's being held back. I'm going to show you the purchase I make myself and how they work out going forward. That will be a next module after this one. So we'll go ahead and we'll order the products now, do an outline of what we have coming in. Once it gets in, I'll show you myself using that same equipment that we recommend, how it works out and some nuances to it. And who knows, maybe some of the things we ordered don't work. And maybe the tent stakes break or something like that. And that's something you'll probably want to know on the front end. And the point is for the program, the plan itself, to be simple enough for anyone to follow and just get up and running with the basics and go out there and do it and experience it and start finding out what you need to add on to after these basics for your own needs. And again, feel free to choose different items. We're not saying these are the perfect items for everyone. We're showing an outline of what's readily available, easily accessible, literally can be delivered right to your door economically. If you have other stores you would rather buy from, other products, please go ahead and do that. That's not going to bother us in the least. To get out there and go camping, particularly if the focus is to prep yourself for bike packing adventures, you really just want to start with the basics, okay? You're going to want a tent, a footprint for the tent, and that's basically what goes underneath the tent so that you don't poke holes through the floor. And you're going to want good stakes for the tent. I bring that up because that's one of those things that the vast majority of the time when you buy a tent, particularly a budget tent, something that's easy on the wallet, typically the stakes that come with those tents are subpar. So you almost always have to upgrade the stakes, and even higher end tents, sometimes you need to do that as well. You're going to want something to sleep on comfortably, okay? You want a sleeping pad or a mattress. And when I say a mattress, an air mattress, we're not talking about bringing in your queen size mattress from your bed at home or anything like that. Generally speaking, sleeping on the ground, directly to the ground, isn't the way you want to go. Some folks are able to do that. Just sleep directly on the ground. They can do that. I realize folks are also going to say, hey, but what about a hammock? I can sleep in a hammock. If you want to do the hammock approach, feel free. I'm not a fan of hammocks myself for multiple reasons. One of the main ones being that if it's your only sleep and shelter system, there's lots of places that you may want to go that a hammock won't work, where there's just nowhere to string one up. So even hammock sleepers typically still need a tent and footprint and sleeping pad setup of some sort if they go on a trip to the desert or whatever else. You're going to want a stove. Even people that may not plan to do much, if any, cooking, you're still going to want a stove, at least to heat water. It can come in handy for medical and emergency basis as well. And most of us do like a good cup of coffee. So to support that stove, some basic cookware and utensils, we recommend a Spork. Most of us, me anyway, coffee's really important. We'll touch on a really simple way to pull that off. You're going to want to be able to easily light a fire in case your stove doesn't work for some reason, or just to do the campfire thing. So we'll give you some tips along those lines. You will want convenient and easy to use lighting. And for what we're doing here, you're going to want a container to keep all this so you can just have it stowed away at home and just grab the container and go whenever you're ready to go on a trip. It's one of the easiest way to do it. The basics take up a pretty small area. You can throw the basics in your vehicle whenever you want to, and you just keep it all in one container. Here's what we recommend to start off on this budget setup. Provide your own bedding, maybe a sleeping bag if you have a sleeping bag, fantastic. A sleeping bag liner. Realistically, again, going back to if you set up initially with car camping, you can bring all sorts of different layers, literally, of bedding to accommodate any type of weather that might come in. That is one of the tough things about bike packing is you can't bring, it's not realistic to bring 3 or 4 different sleeping bags or quilts or whatever else along just in case the weather changes on you. You kind of, a sleeping bag and a liner, sort of thing. And there's been plenty of times where I've overnighted where the forecast was particularly cold and it ended up being much warmer. That's a pretty uncomfortable sleep. Obviously, it's also uncomfortable if it's forecast fairly warm and it ends up getting much colder. That happens quite regularly as well. So until you find out what your true comfort level is for sleeping in the outdoors, if you're a hot sleeper, if you're a cold sleeper, if you got to have a breeze, don't want any breeze, starting out with the base camp setup allows you to throw in, a laundry basket full of different blankets and bedding and things like that. You're going to want to bring a folding chair. It just makes all the difference in the world to have a decent chair to sit in, particularly hanging out around the fire and chatting with friends. You'll want to bring a cooler with a good food selection in it, and obviously ice and keeping things cool. And a cooler also works usually pretty well as a table if needed. Obviously, you'll want to bring your toiletries, your own water, bug spray, sunscreen, etc. And again, in the cooler, your food of choice. Again, the base camp option gives you the flexibility to bring a variety of foods and find out what works for you for a longer day on the bicycle, what you're comfortable preparing or not preparing over the camping stove or over the fire or whatever else. Finding what works for you is what this is all about, because everyone's needs are different. So along those lines, let's go ahead and go shopping. Do our best to keep this under $200 to get everyone up and rolling with brand new equipment through Amazon.com so that it comes directly to your door. That said, if you're not a big fan of Amazon, perfectly fine. Just look at the types of equipment that we're highlighting here. We're choosing Amazon because it's available to almost everyone. You can do the same thing at Walmart, Academy Sports. You can go to REI if you want to. You can shop online at those boutique outdoor shops. Whatever works best for you. We're going to give you a basic framework that everyone can access. So first off, along those lines, again, we're going to start with the tent. And here's a tent that I found. And we're just going to go with the 2-person. And $49.99 delivery free. I am an Amazon member. We can do the green one for a couple dollars less. I kind of like the blue one. So we're going to go ahead and add that to our cart. Actually, can't make up my mind. I'm actually going to go with the green just to stay with the budget that much better. So a couple things on this particular tent that I do want to point out. So this is a freestanding tent. The poles themselves are the support. It is Coleman brand. Yes, definitely a national brand that's fairly well known. There are some things at Coleman I really like. There are some things at Coleman's that I'm not a huge fan of. To be perfectly honest with you, Coleman's bread and butter is budget tents like this. And this is definitely not a bike packing tent, but this is a learning to camp tent that should serve well for just about anyone. So we'll start that. We're going to add that to the cart, and then we'll go to the next. I mentioned the footprint. You can go out there and you can spend $20, $30, $40, $50 for a footprint to go under a tent that is built specifically for that tent. There's nothing wrong with that approach, but realistically, just a basic tarp will do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and add this to the cart. This is an 8x10, which for the size of that two-person tent, this should be plenty of tarp to go under the floor so that we prevent punctures there. And it'll even spill out in front of it a little bit so that we kind of have a little, a runway, a runner, a little front porch area to kick the dust off our shoes and those sorts of things. $7.99. Our next piece is going to be the tent stakes. I spoke to you about those during the session. This is a pack of 12 stakes. I didn't look at the specifics of the Coleman, how many stakes are needed. Generally speaking, for a smaller tent and a rainfly, 12 should be more than sufficient. These are extremely economical ones. I haven't tried this model out before, but I'm 99% certain that they're going to be better tent stakes than what come with the Coleman tent. But we'll actually, when we set it up, we'll try both and see what works better. And if these don't end up not working so well at this budget price, realistically about twice this price, you can get some high quality ones. We'll add those. All right, next is our sleeping pad. Sleeping pads are something that's very much a personal preference. I have one that I like a lot for when I'm camping and sleeping outdoors, but it is not bike packing appropriate at all. So this is something that we're going to go with a super low end air mattress just for at least a somewhat comfortable sleep. This would not be viable for bike packing at all. I don't want to insinuate that it is, but air mattresses can work very well just for a quickie short camping trip. Easy to set up, easy to inflate. This particular one, we're doing a twin. They have an option with a built-in foot pump, or you can get a battery pump. I do have battery pumps of my own that I know work well, but I'm going to try their built-in foot pump as well, because you don't want to always have to depend on batteries. I'll just leave it at that. All right. Here's another Coleman product that I am a fan of. Their portable camping stove, single burner stove. And this is something that you can use for bike packing as well in the long run. Yes, there are definitely smaller ones out there. And there are some less expensive ones. You can get some micro titanium ones that just fold up and fit in the ball of your hand for probably $5 less than this. What you run into with those, though, is that there are stability issues, and the burners themselves are pretty finicky. I use this Coleman for my regular camping, and it is a tad bit bulkier than those micro-sized ones, but for me, the bulk is worth it for the dependability and the stability. This thing just works like it's supposed to. It's not finicky at all. So I'm a big fan of this one. And again, this is something you can use bike packing as well if you choose to. Next on the list is our cook set. And you can see the last purchased November of 2017 by me. I do use it. It comes with these two little mini mugs. For me, it's more about the pot itself, which you can boil a lot of water with. You can use it as a mug. You can even use it as a small cooking pot as well. And it works extremely well for that. For bike packing, you wouldn't want to bring these little mini mugs. They do stash down inside it. And if I remember correctly, that Coleman stove does fit down in there. I'll have to double check that to make sure that is still the case. Most people just get rid of these little micro mugs When I looked at this the other day, it was $10. I think you can get this at Walmart for $9 every time you go there. We'll go ahead and add it to cart. All right, next on our list, this one also, you can see I purchased for myself November of 2017. And this one I like quite a bit because it's a spork and it's a bottle opener as well. You just never know. Sometimes a bottle opener comes in handy when you're camping. All right, we spoke about the coffee aspect of it, and yes, I realize there are coffee snobs out there, and yes, I do realize there are people that do their French press while bike packing or camping, or their pour over. That's perfectly fine. More power to you. For me, that's more trouble than it's worth most of the time. The Starbucks Via instant coffees for instant coffee, they're pretty darn good. So I'm a big fan of those. This is probably this is definitely my camping staple for coffee, and I do need at least 1 cup of coffee per trip, usually 2. And we spoke about starting fires being super important. I am a big fan of these fire starter tablets. They work really well. There has been more than one time when we've tried to start a campfire. Kindling was tough to come by, or dry kindling was tough to come by, or it was just a little bit too windy to get a lighter to work well. Realistically, you can start with bigger, not even kindling size, just small tinder, smaller tinder, medium-sized tinder, and a couple of these, and you'll have a campfire going in about 5 minutes. These also work really well as backup fuel if your stove is out. I've used these. I've used the Coleman ones, and there's one other brand I found at Walmart. These work just as well as any that I've come across. Next is light. You want a headlamp. It's that simple. And you want a headlamp that also has the red or the green alternate so that you don't kill your night vision. If you just need to, see what's in front of you, you just have the red light. Now this is a 2-pack of rechargeable ones. A little bit, you can usually get a single non-rechargeable one with batteries probably in the $10 range, if not less. So we're spending a little bit extra here, but we're going to get 2 lights, and I'm going to try rechargeable. I'm going to try rechargeable to see how that works out. Actually, I'm going to go with the 1-pack because we don't want to blow out our budget. I only need 1 light at a time, and I do have others as a backup if this one ends up not working for some reason. All right, and then you want a container to keep everything in, and these Plano 68-quart storage trunks work. They have an O-ring seal, but they do have an embedded lip seal, so it keeps out the dust and things like that. And the price is right. You can actually get these even less expensive at Home Depot a lot of times. I've seen them down around $16, $17, even on sale at Cabela's at that price point as well. But we're going to go ahead and add that to the cart as well. So we have an order total, including tax, of $196.42. So we stayed under our $200 budget there. We're going to also include a link to the REI camping checklist, and they cover most of what we talked about for the basics, but a bunch of optional stuff as well. So if there's something that you feel that we left off the list that might be important to you, I'll have a link to the REI checklist in the video description as well. So we're going to go ahead and order this equipment. It'll come this way. We'll take it out on a trip, show everyone how it works, and we'll use it once. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set up a giveaway where if somebody needs some camping gear, we're going to give this setup away somewhere down the road. So watch our follow-up video to the camping session where we actually go out and use this equipment for a trip. And we at that time, we'll have more details on the giveaway. Thanks for joining us.